Hello everyone, and welcome back to my tutorial campaign in Realistic Progression 0, the campaign mod for the Realism Overhaul suite of realism mods in Kerbal Space Program. In the last episode, we eventually successfully completed the Labrador 15 lunar orbital mission in a highly inclined orbit of the moon. We tested out the various systems that we will need for flying lunar landing missions, at least regarding the crew in the CSM. So, in this episode, we're going to go ahead and unlock and then test in low Earth orbit the lander. So, let's go ahead and go to the vehicle assembly building. All right, so let us figure out what parts we need to unlock. Now, I did go ahead and build this lander some time ago. Those of you who've watched Squadcast may have seen a version of it. Keeping with our canine names, it is the Retriever, because of course it is. It uses that single RL-10 surveyor stage that we use to place Owl-1 in medium Earth orbit, with the tanks swapped out for cryogenic. So you can see it's set to cryogenic, to lower boil-off. Now the basic lander is the Mark I Advanced lander can, which holds 2 people. And I will have to check exactly what the IVA is set to, because we might have to do some shenanigans given that issue I ran into with ship manifest and having a higher crew capacity than your IVA seats. I have not heard back yet from Papa Joe on getting around that issue. So this lander then has an Astris engine in there, and enough tanks, and enough propellant to get back into low lunar orbit. We then have a terminal landing stage right below that, which has the lunar module's descent engine, which deeply throttles, and about 1 kilometer per second of delta V. Finally, we have this surveyor upper stage, which will handle lunar orbit insertion and then act as a crasher stage, providing about 1,500 meters per second delta V during landing. Due to that fact, we definitely have more delta V than we need, especially because during lunar orbit insertion, we won't have crew aboard, and therefore that we will be 200 kilograms lighter. So that's how things are set up. We have some solar panels on the side to keep things powered during our lunar stay. So this 16.5 tons will need to get placed into a translunar trajectory. That's well within the capabilities of our uprated trebuchet launch vehicle. And what we'll be doing is we'll send this up first, then we will launch the I'm sorry, I'm a bit spaced tonight. So we'll send this up first. We'll get it to the moon. Then we will launch our Labrador and send it off to rendezvous with it. and they'll rendezvous. Some crew will transfer over. They will proceed to land on the moon while someone stays in the Labrador CSM. Then this will launch back up. Then everybody gets to go home, and lunar landing done, complete. Now, the interesting bit here is that we are either going to have to send this to lunar orbit and let it capture into lunar orbit and only then launch Labrador, which means this has to sit in lunar orbit for 3 days. Or we're going to have to launch them essentially back to back and presume that this captures successfully, else the Labrador CSM will perform a lunar orbital mission. Assuming we shake this out correctly in low Earth orbit and then we send it to the moon and everything goes properly, I don't feel it's too much risk to send them both at once. It will also lead to rather lower boil off. So let's go ahead and get this up into space. And I believe that we can take some advantage. Question is, do we try to launch this on a catapult? What is this? Oh, no, that's an outdated catapult. We could try to launch it on a catapult E, which isn't even in my subassembly list. Because really, the trebuchet is too much for it. All right, let me get a catapult E. Where did I leave it? Okay. Okay, so Catapult E was designed, which we forgot to do, to test the Block 3 Labrador in low Earth orbit. We signally failed to do that thing. Well, I mean, we did eventually do it, but only by mistake. It has a 3.6 meter version of the Ranger upper stage, replacing the usual Catapult second stage. Okay, so let's go ahead and we will have to replace this with a regular fairing base. Come on. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. That is quite a large fairing. That is really kind of ridiculously large. That's like, wow. That's insane. Let's see. Where's our RCS? See if this will let us see where the RCS is. Oh, Oh, do I not actually? That's right. This is a right. This doesn't ha this is the second stage version of the Ranger stage. It therefore does not have RCS. Heh. Whoops. Um. So yeah, that was me derping. That and then where are the retros? So this goes here. All right. So this all makes sense now. Okay. So let's go ahead and there's going to be locked and invalid parts. But right, let's go ahead and remove this for now so we can talk a bit more about this whole setup, because I think I probably didn't talk quite enough about it. So right here we have the lander can with this Apollo type docking port, although it's androgynous. Then the RCS is set to NTO and Aerozine, which the Astris also uses. It's shared tankage, just like in the actual lunar module ascent stage. And that RCS will also serve as RCS during landing, which means we will use a bit of the propellant in the upper stage, which is why we've budgeted extra. Basically about 9 seconds extra. So then there's this landing stage with the landing legs, the engine, the all that setup, ladders. Now here we have this stage. Now it looks kind of silly that it's this narrow, but the reason I'm doing it this way is because this is a stage that we flight tested before. It's a 2.5 meter diameter stage. And for that reason, I want to stick with a stage that we've tested before rather than building an entirely new stage for this. Essentially, it's just that existing surveyor stage with some extra insulation. I have left the usual RCS on this stage, but for the lander itself, there's two reasons why I'm going with this RCS. One is that it's 45-degree RCS, and it has to sit on these slab sides of the capsule. So to get best efficiency, these need to be at 45 degrees instead of out like this, because otherwise you get cosine losses out the wazoo. It is far more powerful than I would be using if this were purely an in-orbit craft, where it doesn't matter how long it takes to turn, really, and fine corrections are needed. But this is going to be landing on the moon. So we definitely need to be able to change our attitude quickly, and in particular, we need to use this RCS to cancel out any remaining surface velocity during landing. And for that, we need a little more heft than we otherwise might. So while I'd prefer if I could go with maybe half-size RCS of this, I'm willing to accept that this is the RCS that we're going with. Okay, so that's the basic setup of all this. That uses like 100-something watts, but we do have these 2 sets of solar panels, so that should be fine. All right, let's put it all back together. And we'll need to offset this down some, because for some reason the attach node in that engine is in the wrong place. I don't really understand why. Okay. Let's move this down to something more sane. Move it right down. There. And move this clamp down. Okay. Now we can go up past the top of it and look at the, it's well nestled inside the fairing, so that's okay. So, save it. Not even that expensive to launch. What I'm wondering whether I should be doing is whether I should do 2 launches this way, or whether we should just stack both the whole lander stuff and the command and service module on a trebuchet and just launch them together into low Earth orbit. Not super sure about that, because that actually might be cheaper than launching these separately. And that's within the payload capability of a trebuchet. As you can see here, we'll have to burn some of this upper stage to complete orbital insertion. It looks like maybe about 800 meters per second of it, because 4642, 4070, and then another 800 meters per second off this stage, probably. So the interesting thing, of course, about this setup is that the way to simulate the whole lunar mission would be to do 2 separate launches. Would be to launch one of these on this, would be to launch the CSM on the other thing, on a second one of these launch vehicles. And then do the rendezvous and docking in Earth orbit, transfer crew over, putter around, come back, and then re-enter everybody together. It's actually not a correct preparation for the actual lunar sortie if we launch both this and the CSM together, because of course we are doing full LOR, so we're launching this and the CSM on different LVs to the moon. So there is that concern. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm sort of tending towards. Let's look at the. Oh, you know what? Except also we have to reroute stuff and deal with all that pain. So let's just go ahead and test one of these in Earth orbit, make sure everything works okay. Now, we also have to unlock a whole bunch of parts. So we need the 1 meter guidance unit. That's for this second stage. We need the Mark 1 lander can advanced. And actually, I think we're going to have to redo the solar panels, because I don't think that's enough solar. Because this uses 700 watts. These 2 alone give 800 watts. Then there's another 100 and something from here. So we would not be positive on electricity. So I guess we have to use the big boys. All right. Well, good we figured that one out. Let's also move it so it's nice and centered. Okay. And action group it. We did action group these, didn't we? Yes, we did. Good. All right. I mean, now that we have unlimited pad mass, it's worth considering whether we want to just do a full up launch, but I don't think we do. I think we want to stay with our LOR model. It uses existing launch vehicles and existing hardware we've tested, and it is, of course, somewhat more efficient because we're using hydrolocks here. All right, so that's unlocked. Now we need to what's that? Kerbal safety bubble. That's interesting. We need the landing legs. That's cheap. We need the engines, and we need the lunar module descent engine. $18 million. And I think we can we up? Oh, that's nice. We can upgrade it to the J class. It's always nice. We can upgrade those. That's already on the Astros. Command and control. Have we already unlocked them? Yes, we have. Oh, I forgot that we had those. I'll have to use those on a probe sometime because they're cool. What else do we have to... Oh, a ladder. We have to unlock the ladder. Somewhere around here. Oh, we have part search, don't we? Oh, it's already unlocked because it was in the start node, because unlike stock KSP, we don't think that you have to invent a ladder. Okay, I think that's everything that we would need to have unlocked for this launch vehicle. Oh, you know what I did forget? That's what I forgot. Forgot to upgrade the engine. Okay, so that shortens the burn time slightly, but gives us increased delta V due to the higher thrust. I'll take it. I'm not going to stretch it out to 7 minutes and 50 seconds because we really don't need the extra. All right, so and we can upgrade that RCS too. Okay, this all looks good to me. Let's build it. The launch profile is going to be, we're lofting fairly high. That makes all sense. So let's get rid of that, and now let's overwrite. All right, we also, of course, want to be building a Block 3 Labrador. Oh, whoops, that was stupid of me. I forgot to upgrade the engines on that, on Catapult E. So that's bad. Let's go get that back. Right. cancel this. Now we need to upgrade these engines. Okay, and stretch this a little bit. Okay, now do I want to stretch it out to 7 minutes and 50 seconds again? So do I want to stretch that or not? I think I don't. I think an extra 40 seconds is not worth the delta V. So let's just save it as is. Let's make it a subassembly. Okay, and how long is this? 8.08. Now let's open up Labrador. Labrador 3. Labrador block 3. All right, now if memory serves, we didn't actually have to make any changes. But let's recreate it anyway. We need to 3A. We need to up this to 8.08. And now we need to overwrite this. Catapult E. Okay, and just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to load up the existing Labrador that we've been flying, the lunar one. Get rid of that. Move this down some. Verify that the RCS is the correct tech level. It is. Okay. And now we have to see how much payload we can actually get into orbit. Because, of course, this Catapult E will not be able to get everything we want into orbit. Far from it. Let's see. 49.28 plus 47.21 is 96.49. We can put a bit more delta V up there. 47.65 and 46.89, that's 94.54. That's probably as good as it gets. We're going to block those. Okay. Now, oops, we're sitting way up high. So let's fix that. All right. So this is rather more expensive, but this is what we're going to have to launch, and we will launch it and then, rendezvous, transfer crew over, perform some operations, transfer the crew back, and then return. And that will be a sufficient test of operations. We'll then, I think, be ready to actually launch a lunar mission. Now, in reality, they launched Apollo 10 next, which was a full dress rehearsal. They came within, just a few kilometers of the moon's surface before aborting to orbit to test fully the descent and then the ascent and the redocking. And I'm not sure whether we want to actually bother to do that whole test, or whether we just go from here to an actual landing. So let's go ahead and build this as well. Okay. Sounding rocket high. I think we can accept that. And we're going to go ahead and actually duplicate. What the heck? Did we not have a retriever building? That's odd. Oh, I never rebuilt it after I must have never have set it to rebuild after I changed it up. So let me fix that thing right now. Okay. Load it up. And retriever LEO. That is a large payload fairing. That is definitely a Titan 3, 3E/4 level of payload fairing. In fact, it might even be a bit more. Wow. And we're actually going to build 2 of these, because I think we want to launch the first one just to verify everything works. And then we'll launch one that actually we'll rendezvous with. So, we also have coming up, of course, a Saturn encounter. Although that's still like a week before the actual Saturn encounter. Because that's, 160 hours. So 19 days until we actually enter the SOI. Let's see how long these take. 31 days. All right, so in fact, we will be handling the transition into Saturn's sphere of influence. So let's go ahead and just jump to that now, because will be some time. All right. So we have to go back a ways. Here's Dove 1. It's approaching Saturn. Where is Saturn right now? All right, let's look at things. That is... Did we, like, not do a course correction or something? Or did I feel like I couldn't do a course correction? Because this is going to miss all of Saturn's moons very, very badly. Let's look at Dove 2. Is that also way out of plane? Oh, I think it may be that I didn't figure out a way to fine-tune it to actually get the desired plane. Okay, this looks slightly better in terms of planes, but it's still not so good. And we don't have... We won't have... Yeah. So the best we can do is just to fly inside the rings, get some low Saturn science, and wave to the moons. And sometime later we'll send something that can actually capture in Saturn orbit and then go visit all the moons. So, very well. Let's go ahead and fly that. Okay. Oh, we have kilometer per second of delta V, so why didn't we fine tune? Why did I not set up fine tunes? Oh, that was criminally idiotic of me. Ooh, we're not actually that far out of the plane. That's nice. Set as target, focus view. We are coming in very out of... So we're not that misaligned with the plane of Saturn's orbit, but we are rather misaligned with all the moons because they're not in the plane of Saturn's orbit, because they need to get fixed. Titan, however... Oops. Let's see. Titan is also nowhere near in the plane of Saturn's orbit. Yeah. So I guess we're not actually going to be hitting any of Saturn's moons. All right. Yeah, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why the... Well, let's make a maneuver here and play with it a little bit and see what happens, shall we? Okay, so that's coming in much deeper, so that's not viable. I would be shocked if we could perform much of a capture. How expensive is that? Man, if we'd brought only a little more propellant, we could have captured at Saturn. But we can't. Yeah. So these probes were kind of a waste of what they could have done. I would guess I was not maximally efficient when I launched them. So I think they're just going to be close Saturn flyby probes that will, take pictures of the moons, but not in a way that would actually give us science. Very well. So that means we can go ahead and reduce the times to these. because there's no point. And yes, we'll just ride it into Saturn's sphere of influence. And oh well. Oh, right. I have to remove this. Okay. Okay. Our apoapsis is 8,400 kilometers, passing between the rings and Saturn itself. Man, look at that. That's pretty. All right. So let's do some science. So that gives us a bunch of science. North equatorial bands. All right. Now, let's bring up this and see how long. So, 11 days until that's built. And I reordered my build list so that the second retriever and the Labrador Block 3 completed about the same time. Right. So, let's see what happens in terms of the biome, North equatorial bands. It's just exactly staying in the North equatorial bands, not doing much of anything. I mean, that technically makes sense because we're at a constant latitude, just varying longitude, so that's what it's going to be. Let's also do one of these. Might as well. Wait, did we not actually get science from that? Apparently we didn't get science from that. That's obnoxious. That's super obnoxious. Yeah, we didn't actually get our 12 science. Whoa, wrong thing. Well, no, stop. Why is it? Did my joint? Yeah, my throttle's messed up again. I fixed it before we started the episode, but apparently it decided to unfix itself. All right. Let's go back to an even 6,000 kilometers. Okay. Now let's do that. So we'll, whoops, close alarm details. And this needs to be, you know what, actually, we don't need it to be a maneuver node. We just need it to be periapsis alarm. That's in 66 days and 9 hours. And let's see, what's that? 66 days and 5 hours. So let's try something like 8 hours before periapsis. Okay. Let's hop over to Dove 2. And let's warp Dove 2 to within the sphere of influence bounds. Okay, this looks a little better, which means we might have a chance of getting near one of the moons. Doubtful, but possible. Yes, that comes rather near Titan's orbital altitude and inclination at one point, but there's an infinitesimal chance that Titan will be any near that point when we hit it. Same with the fact that we will be quite near Rhea's orbit at this point, but Rhea is not going to be near that when we are, I don't think. We would have to be insanely lucky for that to be the case. All right, so let's go ahead and warp through the sphere of influence change. Okay. From this also, we're only getting north equatorial bands. Target Titan. And change in match planes with target. I just want to see what this costs. No, DN. How much is that? That's 63,571.1 meters per second to match inclination with Titan at periapsis. Gas giants, man. What could we, however, do? That's a bit low, which means what we could do is put the node right in front of us, and there. That's fairly cheap. How close are we getting to Titan's orbit? That's rather under Titan's orbit still. All right, so let's pitch it up a little more. And try again. How does that look? What's going on with maneuver 2? Where did it end up? All right. Will orbit targeter ever recognize that we're close to Titan? No. No, it won't. However, this is cheap enough that we might as well just do it. Because, what the heck? On the slightest chance that we actually could get close to Titan, we might as well take it, right? So, okay, we'll get rid of that. And how are we doing? That's fairly close, but not close enough that orbit targeter will notice. Okay, that really does look like it's going right through Titan's orbit. So that's, I guess that's about as good as we can do. Yeah. All right. Let's try taking a biosample from this as well, just in case. I'm really annoyed at the fact that the other one transmitted, but we got hit by that usual transmit bug. Observe biosample. Transmit. Okay, we did get the science for this. Good. I'd be really pissed if we lost both of them. I don't believe there's any new science from this. There is not. So let's go ahead and do we have anything that could happen before periapsis? Well, no, we're still well above the orbital plane. So that's 19 hours. That's 67 days, 20 hours. All right, so let's add a 10-hour periapsis alarm. All right, so that's not for a while yet. So let's go back to the Space Center. Okay. I guess we have to go in here and then leave again to get Scatterer to show up. Scatterer seems to occasionally just fail on me. I'm not exactly sure why. I think I had it updated, but there may be an even newer update, and I don't know. Nope. Scatterer is taking the day off. There we go. Okay, that's better. I don't know, maybe it wasn't Scatterer, maybe it was Eve having problems. I don't know. But whatever it was odd. So let's go ahead and warp until our first retriever is ready. It's only a day left. We will roll it out to the light pad. And all right, let's go ahead and do this thing. I'm going to save. It is 1964-08-17. And also I just want to see what the process is on tech. Okay, routine docking coming out, specialized construction. All these things are coming due eventually. The solids are going to be really, really cheap. They're really fast because we have so many research points. And we also, of course, have plenty of science that we can then devote to other things. So let's go ahead and launch. We're going to call this LR1. For laboratory retriever. Uncrewed, and here we go. Okay, and we're just going to launch it basically due east because we don't care that much about our resultant orbit. We just want a high enough low Earth orbit that we can test things safely. And we'll test reigniting the stage. We'll test burning out the next stage. We might test a fire on the hole abort. All right. So launch due east. I think we want 100, 180, 40. That seems about right. Okay, all this looks okay. So let's go ahead and go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff. Roll program. A lot of stages here, so let's move that up some. Okay, pitch program. Looks like we're pitching fairly well. Let's show ascent guidance. So unlike usual versions of the Ranger stage, we do have a knowledge motor for it. Well, I mean two. I mean, like one there and one there. So we'll have a traditional ullage staging event and then light the RL-10s. Not sure why MechJeb is going a little nuts with the pitch. It only seems to happen at fairly high Q. All right. We'll leave limit acceleration on because we'll presume that for some reason that lander is built to the same G specifications as everything else. So far, the launch is going fine. Throttle down has commenced. Okay, so total burn time is going to be about 2 or 3 seconds longer than the original stage time, but that's fine because we're throttling down a lot. Five seconds. Oh, 6 seconds. 7 seconds. Okay. Staging, ignition. We have good ignition. Let's pitch up. Wow, we have quite a high apogee already, so maybe we don't have to pitch up very much. Okay, let's separate the fairings. That's a nice slow and gentle separation. Reminds me of Canis Station. Notice that without anyone aboard the capsule, our delta V is 2436, not 2277. 200 kilograms goes a long way when it's that light. Let's pitch up a bit more, minimize some steering losses. Okay, let's put a sensible inclination in there. We'll go to minus 28.5. Nice long burn time. Hopefully we will not be hit with issues with boil off. Oh, that has a shroud on it. Interesting. I'll have to remember to not have a shroud. This has boiled off nothing so far. The power of cryogenic tanks. That has boiled off 1 liter because its surface area to volume is much higher. Pitch down a little bit, but not that much. I'll aim for a 250 kilometer perigee. I find it somewhat darkly funny regarding the ability of the tech we're using compared to real life. This catapult could put probably about 15 tons in orbit. It's launching 16.5, and then this third stage is circularizing. Maybe only what? No, 14, 13 and a half to 14. Whereas Saturn 1B, which had 6 rather than 4 of these things, and 4 times the liftoff. No, not 4. About twice the liftoff thrust. 2 to 2.5 times the liftoff thrust, I guess. Put only about, I think, God, was it only 9 tons or something with an S4? Forget, not much. With the S4B in the uprated first stage, it could put about 19 tons into orbit. All right, we're about to pass apogee, keeping our pitch up, because we're going to start falling back down, and then all will be well. We're going to aim for 250 kilometer perigee, so we don't want to fall down very much at all. Pitch up a little bit more. Only just now are we hitting 1G in terms of thrust-to-weight ratio. Right now. It's fairly impressive. We're going to max out at 1.6 Gs, which is fairly funny. All right, I guess we actually need to pitch up rather more severely now. I guess we're going for 240 kilometer perigee then, if we're still falling despite 19 degrees of pitch up, and we're already at 251. So, whatever. Downside of hydrolocks is it takes forever. Have we lost a leader yet? Nope. That's pretty cool. We lost our second? Yes, we've lost our second leader there. I mean, to some extent, our perigee doesn't actually matter. Steering losses on this are nuts. Okay. Almost got things set so we don't have negative. Okay, we're finally going positive just before burnout on this stage. Wonderful. Okay. Let's pitch down quite a bit. Okay, just tweaking pitch a little bit to try to get things to about where they should be, given how close we expect to be to reaching orbit. Okay, we have now achieved circular orbit. All right, so step 1, solar panels out. Step 2, antennas out. It's pretty good. And we still have plenty of RCS. So first thing we're going to do is relight and boost to a rather higher orbit. Just to make sure all this works. That's working fine so far. So rather than burn it to exhaustion, because we already have maximum data on that engine, we're going to go ahead and toss it. And let's rename this to debris. Go back to this. Now, RCS goes on. We're going to flip end for end, play around with extending the gear, retracting the gear. Once again, I've forgotten to put lights on the bottom of this. One day I will remember. Extend the ladder. That seems to work. Retract the ladder. All right, so let's go ahead and we don't have SAS. Right, that's fine. orient retrograde. Okay, and ullage, ignite that engine. And watch it throttle. That's good. All right, so we'll run it at 1/3 throttle for a while. Okay. Oh, I forgot to research that engine. Shoot. Oh well. Shoot, shoot, shoot. All right, we're not getting a lot of data for it, so... And I guess since we have it here, we might as well leave it here, but I really should have remembered to research first. This data is in some ways wasted compared to had we researched first. However, it's already an incredibly reliable engine. Because as far as I'm aware, it has literally never failed. And it was designed to be exceedingly reliable. Now, the idea behind the Apollo mission was that when there could be redundancy built in, they did so. When there could be a way to have an abort mode, they could. But for when there really was no possibility of having a reasonable chance of a backup or abort or whatever, for example, the Lunar Module Ascent engine. If that engine had failed, there was literally absolutely nothing that could have been done. The astronauts on the moon would have died long before a rescue mission could have been mounted. There was no backup engine, there was no anything. So that basically the philosophy was, instead of trying to design backup engines and all these things, they just made the components as absolutely simple and reliable as possible. And that's why they were all these very simple, low specific impulse, comparatively, very simple, reliable, pressure-fed hypergolic engines. They were basically designed to be about as reliable as the RCS itself. And that is how they dealt with the risks of Apollo, rather than trying to actually send up some kind of rescue lunar module to be pre-positioned in case the first one failed. Okay, let's pitch up a bit more. All right. pitching up quite a lot because we don't want to sink back into the atmosphere before we finish this burn. And then, of course, also the next burn. So let's practice throttling and reigniting. That worked fine. Building up some data. In terms of design, this lander looks somewhat more like the Soviet LK lander than the U.S. lunar module. But that's because the U.S. lunar module is made up of much more complex shapes, and this just has these two simple shapes. Okay, throttling is still working fairly well. Let's go to minimum throttle. That's producing only 0.137 Gs. Now we're down to 0.11 Gs. So that's some pretty good deep throttling for landing. All the way up to a maximum of 0.8 Gs. Okay, now let's get ready to do our fire in the hole abort. 7, 6, 5, 4, and go. Whoa. Alright, so we would have had to, in real practice, kill the descent module engine before engaging our abort. That's interesting. I'm glad we figured that out. So this is going fairly well. It's at rather lower thrust-to-weight ratio than the other thing had, which is why it's only 0.59 Gs, even after having burned for 39 seconds. So that's the issue. The other thing would have to have been throttled down if we actually wanted to do an abort that got us away from the thing. These numbers were, of course, lying because they're taking the separatrons into account. The little baby separation motors, which are designed to get us clear of that stage. And they got us slightly clear, but the other thing had too high thrust and caught up on us as soon as they burnt out. All right, so our maneuvering is going fairly well. Interesting factoid, the lunar module, in particular the lunar module ascent stage, was proposed as a combat spacecraft for on-orbit operations of the U.S. military. Nice little baby orbital thing. Yep, our tonnage is going down. Oh, did I never? Oh, right, we're using an Astros. Okay. Okay, so far so good. And we'll just burn here because we plan on re-entering anyway. How are we doing? Okay. Already over Africa, so we want to stop burning such that we'll re-enter the Gulf outside of Nigeria, which I think is right about there, actually. So let's go ahead and kill that. Test a relight. Works fine. Test another relight. Works fine. All right. I think we're good. So we've shaken down the spacecraft in orbit. So we can now go ahead and launch the version that we're going to dock with the Labrador and perform all that crude testing. So that was highly successful. What I, of course, forgot was that I accepted Sounding Rocket High contract that required going to 2,700 kilometers, which, of course, we haven't done because we decided to cut that burn short. So we haven't done one of these in a very long time. Let's just launch a sounding rocket. Why not? It'll take like a day to build and an hour to roll out to the pad. So why not? Okay, more to the point, we didn't particularly want that shroud either. Right, so let's go ahead and make a quick sounding rocket now that we have various solids. What solids do we in fact have? We don't have the Altair 2 yet, so let's get that. And we don't have the caster yet, so let's get that. Oh yes, and we don't have the Star 17 either, so let's get that. I like the Star 17 a whole lot. Okay. That's some rather high burnout genes, although we don't quite reach it because of the thrust curve. Okay, so now we need a little baby fairing base and an Altair 2 under it. Aerodynamics. Okay. All right. And okay. Now we need some fins. Did we never unlock supersonic wings? Apparently we did not. This is going to be the most expensive sounding rocket in the history of sounding rockets, in terms of all the part unlocks, but who cares? Okay, make it all nice and gray. Don't need a trailing edge. Don't need thickness. Okay, and next to no actual root width, next to no tip width, not very much length. And offset. Okay. That seems decent to me. And we need a teeny tiny little bit of offset so it spins. Okay. Now, that's acceptable. And we'll just put a second alter 2 down here. Okay. And I guess we need to make this even smaller. Okay. And that's probably enough delta V anyway, but where is this showing up? Down here. All right. I'm wondering whether that alone is enough or whether we need the caster as well. Okay, let's put the caster down here. Oh, and I've still forgotten to set this researching. So let's rectify that right now. No, that's LMDH. LMDEH, we want LMDEJ. Research. All right, that's good. Now, okay. Let's look at that. That's the right setup. So extra height. Okay. let's put some big old fins on the bottom. Okay. Those fins actually seem really a little bit big. Let's try more like that. Okay, that seems more reasonable. And let's extend, I guess, these out a little bit. Okay. Okay. Give it a slight bit of tilt. There we are. Excuse me. Simulate that. Dirt sheet. All right, now this is of course quite overbuilt, but you might as well test the casters and Altairs. And here we go. That's plenty of delta V. We could probably take this to orbit if we wanted to, but whatever. Okay. All right, and let's go ahead and toss the fairing sides, and fire the last bit. G's go up past 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. And there we are. Okay, so our apogee is 8,600 kilometers. All right, so that's plenty more than we needed. We needed 2,700, and even for any sounding rocket contract, it's only like 6,000 is the max. So 8,600 is breaking all of that. And we proved that it didn't aerodynamically overstress or structurally overstress. And if we angled it correctly, it probably could manage to get to orbit. Not super sure, but I'm not going to try that now because don't need to. Yes, so this was a highly effective little thingy. Fairly cheap too. The G-loading would have been saner if we'd put a sounding rocket telemetry core on that. We probably still would have had enough delta V, but whatever. Not seeing any sounding rocket contracts in here. I did finally get around to rejiggering the numbers on these things. So their payouts are saner. That's paying out less than it probably should, I think. And these maybe slightly more. But the numbers are rather saner. Because you need way more launch vehicle to do that. Anywho, let's fix our build order. Interesting. Even at minimum, it takes 3 days to build that thing. Very well. All of a half hour to roll it out, though. Let's warp to the morning. Launch it. We probably could have gotten away without the second Altair, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we needed it. So here we go. There's something to be said for just utter speed. So unlike all the launch vehicles I've been launching recently that have their, 8-minute burn times on stages and consistently less than 1 thrust away ratios and all that stuff. Sometimes you just want to go fast. Second Altair, and I'll take us up to what? 700-800 kilometers, I think. Fairings off. And final. Oh, it took us to like 1.3 megameters. So, yeah, we also, yeah, it's nice to just hit space and then hit space. Don't have to worry about ullage, don't have to worry about attitude, don't have to worry about anything. Okay, so we expended about 150 meters per second, or 100, something like 100 meters per second less than our rated vacuum delta V, which is pretty good. So, right, now we just head on up to whatever it was, 2,700 kilometers to complete that contract. There we are, sounding rocket high. 2,700 kilometers. All right. And if we ever need to use those for kick motors or use the casters as strap-ons, we've now flight tested all those solids, so we're good. All right, so on that happy note, I think it's time I call this episode to a close. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope it was helpful. You learned something from it. And I hope to see you again tomorrow night. Thanks, and have a good one. Bye-bye.